Narrative and story are two words that are often used interchangeably. We say narrative and we mean story, we say story and we mean narrative. That is because as we go through life and acquire our life experiences, we think of them as stories, and this is the way how we store them in our memory as stories. Narrative could be thought of as a larger mental structure under which we group these stories, and narrative structures help us to interpret the world and the future experiences that we will acquire. The difference between narrative and story could be described like this. Story has time and space constraints. So each story will have a beginning and an end, and it will also be speaking about specific period in time, and it will have some particular persons or characters that feature in this story. Narrative does not have any temporal or spatial constraints. So narrative does not have a clear beginning or a clear end. And also narrative will not have just some concrete specific characters that feature in it. It will be kind of like an accumulation of stories that you have acquired through your life. To understand the difference between story and narrative, think about such situation as an example. So you are at home, you are watching television, and there is a news report where information is provided that in some small town there was a bank robbery and all the money was taken from this bank. Now, if you are a law-abiding citizen, based on your existing narrative structures, you will have a certain interpretation of this story. So most likely you will think, oh my God, this is awful, poor owner of the bank, he has great losses, poor people who lost all their money, I wish they catch this criminal. If your narrative structures are those of a criminal, you will have a completely different interpretation of this very same story. So you will think, well done, I wish I thought of this first, and I wish they don't catch the criminal. In order to understand somebody's narrative structures, what we can do, we can analyze the stories that these persons tell us. And we can analyze them according to a certain set of criteria. So this is just one example of how this could be done. In a typical story, there will always be a protagonist and an antagonist, and there will always be some form of a conflict. So by conflict, I mean that the protagonist feels that there is a lack of something or there is some form of oppression. Then the protagonist will always have a goal. So what is this ultimate desire that needs to be fulfilled, or something that needs to be achieved or gained? And then the protagonist will suggest different ways, some steps, how this goal could be achieved. And if you pay close attention to what are those suggested steps from the point of view of protagonist, this will reveal protagonist's narrative structures. And then at the end of the day, each story has a resolution. So what was the specific concrete action that the protagonist took to achieve the goal or fulfill the desire? Now, coming back to the example about the bank robbery. So if you are a law-abiding citizen, then this course of action and the resolution will definitely not involve some kind of illegal ways of obtaining finances or money. So you will do something like, for example, getting an extra job to earn more money in a legal way. But if you are the criminal and have these narrative structures, then it means your suggested steps will be probably illegal or involve some criminal action, and at the end of the day, your resolution will be to go and rob the bank. To convey your message as a communicator, you can employ different messaging strategies. And of course, there is a vast amount of literature and practical experience that suggests them. What I will tell you is just one example. You could employ an informative strategy. Informative strategy presumes that you will be sharing unbiased information in a neutral language. So that kind of strategy works for an audience that is rational and already motivated. This strategy will not work if you need to achieve quick results, a quick behavioral change, because informative strategy is similar to learning. So as you provide more information to people, they develop more detailed understanding of the problem, and gradually they learn, and eventually they will take some form of action, but it will not bring you very quick results. Let's look at an example from a context of COVID pandemic. So informative strategy would presume that as a communicator, you are sharing unbiased, neutral information about the virus. What is a virus? What are its properties? What is discovered by scientists, how it's spreading, to what level it is contagious or not, what are the symptoms when you fall ill. So that would be an informative strategy. And gradually, as people learn more about the virus, they recognize that it's dangerous and they themselves start to take precaution in order not to fall ill. The other strategy is facilitative strategy. So again, that means that people have already understood what is the situation, what is the problem, and they have themselves already decided to act. But you as a communicator share information and also practical resources for them to help in this action. So that can be in a form of an advice, but it can also be material help. So for example, in the case of COVID pandemic, what you as a communicator can do, you can keep repeating or providing more detailed instructions on how to keep safe, and that will help people because they are already inclined to do it and it will just inform them better. Or you can, for example, put out face masks in all public places so that people actually have easy and free access to them and they can wear them because they already understand the virus is dangerous and they want to wear them. The other type of strategy is persuasive strategy. So that is very different to the informative strategy because it does not use neutral language, quite the opposite. Persuasive strategies try to appeal to your emotions and they will always involve some form of a call for action. So persuasive strategies are used when you actually need quick results in terms of people engaging in a specific behavior. If you look at the example of COVID pandemic, you may be in a situation where you have a crisis, hospitals are overloaded, you don't have enough doctors or nurses, so you want to appeal to the people that they volunteer and go and work in the hospitals to support the hospital staff. Now, persuasive strategies, they are not just emotional, so they would not just appeal to your empathy and to your values as an audience, but they would also leave out certain parts of information. So you may communicate there is a crisis, appeal to people's empathy, they feel sorry for the overworked doctors, but the part of information that you are not releasing is about why is there a crisis? Why is there a problem with our health system in the first place that it got overloaded so quickly and that we don't have enough medical staff to take care of the patients? Power strategies presume that the understanding in the audience for a need to change or for a need to do something is actually very low, but you as a communicator need quick results. So there are two kinds of power strategies. One is the threat and punishment strategy. The other is promise and reward strategy. What is important to understand about these strategies is that no matter which one you choose, whether you threaten or you promise, at the end of the day, you as a communicator have to match your words, so your threat or your promise, with actual resources to provide the reward or the punishment. So in a COVID situation, if you are promising that those people who get vaccinated will then enjoy more personal freedoms, such as going to restaurants or attending cultural events, then, for example, you need the resource to somehow verify whether they are vaccinated or not. So you need the resources to provide them with a COVID pass, let's say, that affirms their vaccination. Or the other way around, if you are threatening people that, for example, they will break the curfew and go out at night or in the evening, which is forbidden, or not wear a face mask, then you need sufficient number of police forces that will go and check and actually apply some kind of administrative or other kind of punishment to those people. Trust is a very complex idea. Trust is not actually some singular concept. You should think of trust as a web of different kind of relationships that build this feeling of trust. Trust is quite personal, so it is affected by person's psychological profile, by emotional state, and also by past experiences, what this person has had. Trust is also affected by the cultural context. So, for example, you will have some countries where nobody trusts politicians, But you will have other countries where there is a very high trust in politicians. There is a big difference between trustworthiness and trust. So trustworthiness is a more stable and, in a way, more understandable concept because it is about the personal character traits of a communicator. It means that if you are honest, if you have integrity, if you take responsibility and you deliver on your promises, then you are trustworthy, and most likely you will stay like that. But trust is very selective. So you being a trustworthy communicator doesn't mean that the audience will necessarily trust you, because there is this complex web of relationships, of past experiences, emotional states that affect whether the audience will trust you or not. That's why we have certain situations where a communicator can be trusted by an audience on one issue, but not trusted on another issue. In terms of trust, social media becomes a problem because it is a trust-based network, and it is very easy, therefore, to manipulate people. Exactly because they trust those who are in their network of friends or connections. Why is that? When you select those who will become part of your network on social media, you do so because, first of all, you normally know those people, and secondly, because you normally like those people. So these are these two components. One is emotional, so liking someone or respecting someone. And the second one is past experience, because you have known those people and you are happy for them to be within your network. So if one of these people will share some form of information, you are much more likely to trust it than if it would come from somebody who is outside, let's say, mass media or just some politician in a public meeting or anything like that.